Chapter 11. The Honest Thief. One morning, as I was leaving for my office, Agrafena, my cook, washerwoman, and housekeeper, came into my room and, to my great surprise, began a conversation with me. Until that morning, this simple, ordinary woman of the people had been so uncommunicative that, except for a few words about dinner each day, she had for the last 6 years scarcely uttered a word to me. At least I never heard her speak of anything else.
I'd like to have a word with you, sir. Why don't you like the little room?
Which balloon?
Why, as if you didn't know, sir. The one next to the kitchen, of course.
What for?
What for, sir? Why, don't you know? Because other people let their rooms, of course.
But who would take it?
Who would take it, sir? Of course you know who would take it. A lodger, of course.
Why, my good woman, what's to live in a cubby hole like that? It's nothing but a box now. I doubt if you could fit a bed in it. Even at that, you hardly any room to move about in.
Nobody wants to live in it, sir. He just wants a place to sleep in. He could live on the window, sir.
Which one is so?
Why, as if you didn't know, sir. The windowsill down the passage. He could sit on it and do anything he likes. He could sit on a chair if he likes. He has a chair and a table too. He has everything, sir.
But who is he?
Oh, he's a good man, sir. He's had a lot of experience in his life, he has, sir. He has a passport and all the proper papers, sir. I could cook for him, and you could charge him 10 rubles a month for his board and lodging.
After the exercise of a great deal of patience, I found that an elderly man had persuaded or somehow induced Agrafena to admit him to my home as a paying guest. Now I knew very well that if Agrafena ever took it into her feeble brain to do a thing, it had better be done at once or she would give me no peace. For whenever anything was not to her liking, Agrafena became moody and fell prey to the blackest melancholy which lasted for a fortnight or 3 weeks. During that time my dinners were uneatable. My floors remained unscrubbed. And several indispensable articles were missing from my personal washing. In short, my life became one long chapter of the most unfortunate accidents. My peace of mind being dearer to me than anything else in the world, I at once accepted Agrafena's proposal to take in a lodger. The very next day, the new lodger, Astafy Ivanovitch was his name, installed himself in my home. I can't say I was very sorry. On the contrary, in my heart of hearts, I felt rather pleased. Having spent 10 years of my life in complete isolation from the world, having no acquaintances to speak of and scarcely ever going out, it seemed like a real blessing to finally have some company besides Agrafena.
Good to meet you, sir. Here are my papers. I'm sure you'll find them satisfactory.
I'm certain they're fine. Well, I see here you were a soldier.
Yes, sir. Fought many wars all over the world.
I bet you have plenty of stories to tell.
As many as you would care to listen to, sir.
I'll show you to your room.
What's you on? Does a civil servant by the name of Andros live here? No, I'm afraid there's no one here of that name. Goodbye.
Well, that's odd, because, the caretaker told me that he lived here.
Get out! Beat it! Scram!
Oh, no. How does it fit, sir?
Oh, it's fine, Astafy Ivanovitch. But tell me, what finally happened to the man? He must have gotten caught.
Well, he turned himself into the police and was sentenced to 8 years in Siberia. He's still there, I suppose.
I'm sorry, sir. I couldn't catch him. It's as if he vanished into thin air.
That's a bit of bad luck, Astafy Ivanovitch. It's a good thing I still got my winter cloak. That villain would have left me stranded.
I just can't get over it, sir. It's as if he came in, grabbed the coat, went back out again, and then vanished into thin air.
We've been fooled, Astafy Ivanovitch.
Aye, we've been fooled, sir. Though it's none of my business, it upsets me all the same. It makes my blood boil, it does, though it's not my coat that's been stolen. For to my way of thinking, the worst kind of villain is a thief. He steals the work of your hands, the sweat of your brow, and your time too. Makes my blood boil just to think about it. But if you'll pardon me, sir, why don't you seem upset about the loss of your property?
Well, it is a confounded nuisance, but, Astrid Ivanovich, I'd much rather burn my things than let a thief have them.
Yes, sir, it's been a nuisance, all right. But there are thieves, and then there are thieves. Which reminds me, I knew an honest thief once.
Why, Astrid Ivanovich, how can a man be honest and a thief at the same time?
Well, you got me there. What I meant to say was that this man seemed honest enough, but he stole all the same. There's never been a truly honest thief, and I suppose there never will be. But I did feel sorry for this man.
Who was it?
Well, sir, it all started 2 years ago. I'd been out of work for a year at the time, and I ran into a man down at the local pub. He was a down-and-out drunk, a loafer, a rapscallion, a vagabond. But I took a liking to him, sir, and he came home to stay with me for a few days. See, he was down on his luck, too. He'd just been fired from working in a government office on account of his drunkenness. A down-and-out loafer he was.
No sooner did he get something than he'd spend it on drink. Of course, I couldn't help seeing how badly the poor fellow wanted a drink, so I'd stand him one. He stuck to me like a dog, followed me about everywhere. At first he asked me to let him stay the night. Well, I did. The next day he wanted to stay again, and on the following day he came and spent the whole day on the windowsill. Stayed the night, too. Good Lord, I thought to myself, I shan't be able to get rid of him now. Provide food and drink for him and a bed as well?
I was racking my brains what to do with the fellow. I couldn't very well just chuck him out. I couldn't well say, "Look here, Yemlian, it's time for you to move on. I'm not the man for you. You'd better leave." Because I knew then that he'd go out onto the landing with tears in his eyes, and I couldn't let a man go to the dogs like that. No, I couldn't do that. So what I did, I just thought to myself, I thought, stay a while, Yemlian, but you won't be staying very long, because I'll move on soon, and then it's 10 to 1 you'll ever find me.
Well, sir, one fine day I did move, and went to live with an old lady I knew. She had only one room to spare.
Well, I says to myself, it's goodbye for good, Yemlian, dear fellow. You'll never find me now.
But I came back one evening, and there was Yemlian, sitting on my chest. It's no use, I thought to myself. Why didn't you get rid of him at first? Well, sir, so I sat down and began to consider what to do next. Thinking it over, I decided the harm he'd do me wouldn't amount to that much. He'll have to have something to eat, of course, I thought. I'm no great eater myself, and it's a well-known fact that a drinking man never eats. All he wants is vodka and a drop of brandy. But as I was thinking of that, something else occurred to me, something I couldn't get out of my head. For I suddenly realized, sir, that if Yemlian was to go, there would be nothing left for me to live for. So I made up my mind, then and there, to be his only provider and benefactor.
I must get him to give up drinking, I thought. I must save him from utter ruin. So the first thing I decided to do was to get a job of work for him to do. I observed him on the sly to figure out what kind of work he'd be good at. But it didn't take me long to figure out that poor old Yemlian was a desperate case. Aye, a desperate case, sir. So the first thing I do, I gave him a piece of advice.
Why, young man, take a look at yourself and do try and make yourself a bit more respectable-like. Look at those rags you go about in, and look at that disgraceful coat of yours. Why, God forgive me, all it's good for is to make a sieve out of. Why, for shame, young man. It's about time you turned over a new leaf and became a changed man. Now, what are you sighing for, young man?
Oh, nothing. Take no notice of me, Astrophy. You know, Astrophy, I saw two women in the street today. One upset the other's basket of cranberries on purpose.
Well, what of it, young man?
Well, you see, Astrophy, so the second woman upsets the first woman's basket of cranberries on purpose and starts stamping on them.
Well, so what about it, young man?
Oh, nothing, Astrophy. I just thought I'd tell you, that's all. And there was a gentleman who dropped a note on the pavement on Gorokahova Street. Or no, it was Sadovaya Street. And the peasant saw it and said, "It's my lucky day." But another peasant also saw it and said, "No, sir, it's my lucky day. I saw it first."
And?
And so the two peasants had a fight, and a policeman comes along and picks up the note and gives it back to the gentleman and threatens to take the two peasants to the police station.
Well, so what about it, young man? I mean, what is there especially instructive?
Oh, nothing, Astrophy, but the people on the street thought it was awfully funny.
Oh, who cares what the people on the street do, young man? Think of yourself. Think of your poor soul, which you've sold for a few coppers. You know what, young man?
What, Astrophy?
Why don't you get yourself some work? For the 100th time, young man, have pity on yourself.
What kind of work do you want me to get? I mean, I don't know what kind of work I can do, and no one would even give me any work.
Of course not, you drunkard. That's why you got kicked out of the civil service.
You know, Blasta Popway was summoned to the office today.
And why was he summoned to the office?
Oh, I don't know, Astrophy. I suppose they wanted to see him, so they summoned him.
Ah, well, I thought. There's no hope for either one of us, Yemlian. No help at all. The Lord must be punishing us for our sins. And what can you do with a man like that? But he was devilishly cunning, Yemlian was. He'd listen quietly to me for a long time, but sooner or later he'd get bored. And the minute he noticed that I was beginning to lose my temper, he'd pick up his old coat and sheer off. He'd loaf about all day and come back dead drunk in the evening. I don't know who paid for his drinks or where he got the money to pay for them himself. I had nothing to do with it.
Now look here, Yemlian. If you go on drinking like this very much longer, you're sure to come to a bad end. Stop drinking, do you hear? Give it up. Next time you come home drunk, you'll jolly well have to spend the night on the stairs. I'm damned if I'll let you in.
Well, sir, he saw I really meant it this time, so for the next 2 days he didn't go out. But on the third day, he cleared off again. I sat up waiting for him, but he didn't come back. What have I done to him, I thought. I've gone and scared him away good and proper now. Where could he have got to, the poor wretch? Pray God nothing happens to him. Well, what made you do it, Yemlian? Why would you want to spend the night out here?
Oh, you were so angry with me the other night. You're so terribly vexed, and you promised to make me spend the night on the landing, so I didn't dare come in. I slept here.
Well, you might have found yourself a different kind of job. What's the good in guarding a landing?
What kind of a different job do you mean, Aston?
You loafer, you might as well have learned the tailor's trade. Look at that coat of yours. You're not content with having it filthy. It's got to be tattered, too. Now, why don't you go in and get a needle and thread and patch it up? You old drunkard.
Well, would you believe it, sir? He did take up a needle and thread. I meant it as a joke, but he got properly scared and sat down and began to patch up his coat.
Well, Yemlian, you've certainly made me proud of you. If there had been anyone here, I'd have sunk through the floor for shame. Don't you realize I was joking? That I only meant this as a reproach? For shame, Yemlian. Now leave that alone. Don't try and do anything you can. And don't sleep out on the landing again. For God's sake, Yemlian, don't disgrace me like that ever again.
Well, what do you want me to do, Aston? I know that I'm always drunk and I'm not good for anything. It seems the only thing I'm good for is to cause you, my benefactor, unnecessary trouble.
Well, sir, why make a long story of it? It's hardly worth wasting words on. I had a pair of riding breeches, you see. Lovely breeches they were. The devil take 'em.
Ordered by a country gentleman who was on a visit to town, but he wouldn't take them after all. They were too narrow for him, he said, so they were left on my hands. It's a valuable article, I thought. I might get 15 rubles or more for them in the second-hand market. And even if I didn't, I might manage to get 2 pairs of trousers for our Petersburg gentleman out of them, and have a piece left over for a waistcoat for myself. To poor folk like us, sir, every little counts.
Well, sir, as it happened, Yemlian was down on his luck at the time. He was having a poor time of it. He hadn't had a drop of liquor in days and looked down in the mouth. Well, I couldn't help feeling sorry for him. I thought to myself, well, Yemlian, old fellow, either you're out of money or you finally thought to turn over a new leaf and give up drinking for good. But as it happened, sir, we were having a church holiday at the time, and I went out to the evening service.
When I came back, I found Yemlian sitting by the window, blind drunk, rocking to and fro. Aha, I thought, so you've gone and done it again, my lad. And I went to put my prayer book in my chest. I opened it, and the first thing I noticed was that my breeches were no longer there. Looked for them everywhere I could think of, but couldn't find them. Well, after I turned the place upside down, and all to no avail, something seemed to stab me in the heart. I rushed off to my landlady, and at first accused her of the theft. I acted like a real madman, I did. Hardly knew what I was doing. You see, sir, it hadn't entered my head that Yemlian was the real culprit, although the evidence was staring me in the face, as you might say, for the man was blind drunk.
No, sir, I haven't seen your breeches. And anyway, what would I want with your breeches? I couldn't wear them, could I? I lost a skirt myself the other day, and I shouldn't be surprised if it wasn't one of your nice friends who took them. But as for your breeches, I know nothing about them.
But who was here while I was out? Did anyone come in?
No, nobody came in, sir. I ought to know. I've been here all day. You know he came and went. We might ask him.
Now, Yemlian, you haven't by any chance taken my riding breeches, have you? The ones I made for the country gentleman. You know which ones I'm talking about, don't you?
No, I'm sure I never took them. You're perhaps thinking that I took them, but I assure you, I've never seen them.
But now where could they have got to?
Haven't the faintest asked if they... I never took them.
Well, I assume they just got up and walked away then.
Maybe they have. Maybe they have. You know, Astaphy, the male nurse Ante Prokorovich married the wife of the old coachman who died the other day.
Now, what are you doing under there, Yemlian?
I'm looking for your bridges, of course. They might have gotten put under here by accident.
Now, why would you want to go through all that trouble for a poor, ignorant fool like me? Why get down on your stomach for a fool like me, Yemlian?
It's no trouble, Astaphy. You never know. They might turn up if you keep looking for them long enough.
Is that so? Now, look here, Yemlian.
Yes, Astaphy?
Are you sure you haven't just taken them, like a common thief, in exchange for all that I've done for you?
No, Astaphy. I never touched them.
Well, I'm sorry, fool that I am. I've accused you unjustly. But it's of no importance that the breeches are gone now. We can get on well without them. At least we still have our hands. We needn't go about thieving or begging. We can earn our bread. Go on now, young man. Get up.
Yemlian listened to me in silence, but after a while he sat down by the window again.
He stayed there all evening, never stirring from his place. He was still there when I went to bed. And when I got up the next morning, I found him curled up in his old coat on the bare floor. He was too humiliated, you see, to come to bed. Well, sir, since that day I conceived a violent dislike for him. And to tell the truth, sir, during the first few days I simply hated the sight of him. It was as though my own son, so to speak, had robbed me or done me some mortal injury.
Well, sir, for the next fortnight, Yemlian was out on a spree, drinking hard every night. He'd go out early in the morning and come back late at night, stinking drunk. And for that whole fortnight, I don't think I ever heard him utter a word. I knew he was down on his luck, but it looked as if he might even be trying to do himself in. But then, sir, at last it all stopped. I knew he must have been out of his money by then.
In any event, there he was, sitting by the window again. Sat there, if my memory serves me right, for 3 whole days, without uttering a word. Then all of a sudden, I saw that he was crying.
Now, what's the matter, Yemlian?
Nothing, Astaphy.
Now, look here, Yemlian. You can forget all about it. You can let the whole thing just go hang as far as I'm concerned. Why sit there like a broody hen?
Well, it's nothing, Astaphy. It's not about that. I was thinking I'd like to get some work.
Well, what kind of work?
Any kind of work. Maybe what I was doing before with civil service, or if anything. I just want to pay you back for all the trouble you've gone through for me.
No, Yemlian. Stop talking such nonsense. You know that can't happen. Now let's just get on as we used to.
No, Astaphy, I can see you're still harping on it.
Well, now suppose you did something you didn't ought to. I'm over it, Yemlian. Let's just get on like we used to.
No, it's not the same anymore, Astaphy. I should leave.
Now, Yemlian, who's driving you out? Who's making you want to leave? Am I doing this?
No, you've changed, Astaphy. There we go.
But Yemlian, be sensible, man. Now where will you go? What will you do?
Goodbye, Aspen. You've changed. I can't stay here anymore.
I've changed? What do you mean I've changed, Yemlian? Now mark my words, if you go out there, you'll perish like a little boy.
No, Aspen, I have to go. You've changed. Every time you go out, you lock up the trunk. I think it's best for the both of us if I just leave.
So I waited the entire day for him, expecting him to come home in the evening. But he didn't come home, nor did he come home the next day, or the day after. I was so upset, sir, I couldn't sleep or eat or drink. The fellow had quite an effect on me, you see. But I had made up my mind on the fourth day to go around to the pubs looking for him. But no one had seen him. It was as if he just plain vanished. Haven't died, have you, Yemlian, dear fellow, I thought? Maybe he'd given up the ghost and was lying under a fence somewhere like a piece of rotten driftwood. Well, sir, I came home more dead than alive, but I was determined to go out the next day looking for him again. All the while I cursed myself for letting such a hopeless man go out all by himself. On the morning of the fifth day, I was eating some soup when the door opened.
Well, Yemlian, dear fellow, it's good to have you back. If you'd been 2 minutes later, I would have been out looking for you in the pubs again. We'll sit down. Have you had anything to eat?
Yes, thank you, Aspen. I have.
Are you sure? Well, look. Now, here's some cabbage soup left over from yesterday with some beef in it. It's good. And here's some bread and an onion. Here, have some. And here. Here, young man. Have a drink of this. It's good for your health. What is it? What's the matter, young man?
No, thank you, Aspen. I don't.
You don't want to drink?
No, thank you, Aspen. I think I'm going to give up drinking.
Give it up just for today, or give it up for good? You sure you don't want to drink, Yemlian? Ma, are you okay? Oh, you're feverish. Let's get you into bed. That's it. Lie down. Are you sure you don't want anything, Emily?
Yes, I'm sure.
I'll send for a doctor. Stay here. He's in a bad way, isn't he? You could have spared yourself the trouble of calling me. Still, I suppose I better give him some powder. Take some of this and add it to his food or water 3 or 4 times a day.
Well, sir, I never gave Yemlian the powder because I could see the doctor had no faith in him. In the meantime, the 5th day of his return came.
Aspen,
What is it, Yemlian?
do you think if you brought my old coat to the second-hand market, they'd give you a lot for it?
Oh, not much, I suppose. Well, 3 rubles, perhaps.
You don't think they'd give you 10 rubles for it? I mean, coat made out of fine cloth like that?
Well, I don't know, young man. But if you want me to take it, I'll ask for 10 rubles to start with, if you want me to.
That's the thing.
What is it, young man?
Sell my coat when I die. I won't have any use for it. It's a valuable article, and it might come in handy for you.
Would you like some water, young man?
Yes, please.
Would you like anything else, young man?
Only,
What? Only what? What is it, young man?
You're running bridges has to be. Maybe it's worth it.
Well, I'm sure God will forgive you, young man. You can die in peace. I turned round, sir, and could see that Yemelin was trying to say something to me. He was trying desperately to sit up, and his lips were moving soundlessly. Then his face reddened, and he turned to look at me. Then it grew pale again, paler and paler, and his head fell back, and he seemed to shrivel up. Then he drew one last breath, and gave up his soul to the Maker.
Oh, yeah!